Hey, thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. Of course, I want you to subscribe because legitimately this is fantastic. Amazing content, and Holy Spirit talks to me. I know it talks also through me to you for some really cool stuff that you can apply in your daily living. And we're continuing our series, Jesus with Skin. And last week we talked about the prodigal son. It was interesting because we talked about the audience Jesus gave this parable to. The audience last week, just to refresh your memory a little bit, or maybe you're watching for the first time, but the audience Jesus was talking to was the audience of sinners and tax collectors, as well as, and this is Luke 15, verses 1 and 2, as well as the religious leaders, the Pharisees and the scribes. So you had both ends, if you will, of the spectrum. You had everybody who did it right. I talked last week, maybe some of us were like the ones who colored in the lines, we got high grades, we're high achievers, we do everything right, and, we're very meticulous and fantastic, do everything just exactly perfect. And then there are some of us who, they give us a coloring page and we color the table instead of the page. We don't color outside of the lines, we just skip the whole page altogether and do the table. And we don't do it all right. We're like reprobates and we kind of go way out of bounds. And Jesus is talking to both groups. And in this parable, this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the labor of love. Because Jesus being skin, Jesus in skin is genuine love in skin. And in this parable, Jesus really identifies, and I think there's a couple things, takeaways for both of us that we can look at. And I want to look specifically at one takeaway today, and it is the labor of love. And what happens here in the labor of love is in this parable, Jesus talks about how the younger son wants to liquidate all of the inheritance so he can go off and do his own party thing. And so the father does that. The father liquidates all of his finances, all the resources, all the inheritance, and passes it on to his younger son. The younger son goes out and squanders all that wealth. It says he was in party lifestyle, riotous living, prostitutes. He just, talk about coloring out of bounds. Again, he colored the table, not necessarily any kind of a coloring page. He was like off, partying and way out of bounds. And what stays in Vegas, nothing, all that whole mindset of just way reprobate. But it's interesting because the son squandered all the wealth, came to the end of it, didn't have any money. There's a famine in the land. This is all the parable Jesus tells us. Famine in the land. The kid doesn't have anything to eat, so he winds up feeding pigs. Remember, Jesus is talking to a Jewish audience, so that's bad, right? We don't do that. And the kid is feeding pigs, and he's so hungry, he wishes he could eat the pig food. And he comes to his senses. And here's where you see the labor of love. The kid comes to his senses and said, I'm going to go home and tell Dad, I don't deserve to be your son, but could I be a servant? Because even the servants at home live better than me out here feeding pigs. And so the kid starts to go home. And this is where I would propose to you is the labor of love. Because when he goes home, in verse 20, this is Luke 15, verse 20, he gets up and comes to his father. But while the kid is a long ways off, his father saw him, felt compassion for him, and ran, embraced, and kissed him. And this is the labor of love, that the father comes out to the reprobate, comes out and sees the kid who's been decimated by poor choices. I think you and we probably made some poor choices. We didn't do it all right. Some of us, you're watching right now, you're like, yeah, I'm living the consequence of my bad decisions. And I want to encourage you that those consequences don't exclude you from the Father loving you. The Father, there's a labor of love, and the Father comes out to meet you no matter how far off you are. And when the Father sees you, he runs. He runs. He has compassion in his heart. He falls on you. He kisses you. He hugs you. He embraces you. He said, I'm so excited that you're home. I'm so excited that you're back. I missed you. I'm thrilled that you're the labor of love, that God will go exceedingly far beyond what we could think in our natural mind to reach out and get us no matter where we're at, no matter how poor our decisions, no matter what the consequence. The Father reaches out and comes in the labor of love. But you say, well, maybe you're listening today, maybe you're not the reprobate, maybe you're the righteous. Maybe you're the religious. You colored in the lines. You did it all right. And you're like, well, is there any labor of love for those who do it all right? And there is. There is. Because what happens is, and I want to read this to you, and this is verse 28. It says that the father went out to the older son. The older son heard about the party, heard about the fattened calf getting killed, and everybody's celebrating. The older son, who's kind of does it all right, colors in the lines, he gets upset. And he stays outside of the house. But in verse 28, it says the father, in verse 28, he says he wasn't willing to come in, and the father went out and began to plead with him. And again, the father comes out to us. No matter if we've done it all wrong and all the negative consequences, and there's all kinds of filth and dirt and bad results, or maybe we did it all right and we've excluded ourselves because it's based on our works, based on our behaviors, based on our good choices. And I deserve. And the father comes out. It's the labor of love to both boys. So whether you're kind of the reprobate or whether you're more religious and upright, the father comes out to both of us. And wherever we have excluded ourselves, I excluded myself because of my bad decisions. I've excluded myself because I'm worthy, I'm righteous, I deserve this. And it's based on my merit, on my behavior. The Father says, I love you no matter what. I love you not because of what you did right. I love you not because you screwed up. I love you because of who God is. This is the labor of love. And I just encourage you, we know that the Father loves you and me. I know this beyond the shadow of a doubt. John 3:16. For God so loved the world. God so loves you. God so loves me, that he sent Jesus in the flesh. Demonstration. Jesus, genuine love in skin. And Jesus was the labor of love, the expression, the personification of the labor of love, because he lived his life to express love to us in a human existence. And we know, if you know friends and people in our human relationships, we don't have that genuine love, really. It only comes through that connection with Jesus. So I just encourage you today that whether you're the reprobate or you're the religious, the Father, the labor of love comes out to you regardless of where you are. If you're pouting and upset and angry and jealous and resentful and no matter what, or maybe you've got all these negative things that you've done and there's just this no matter what, shame, guilt, self-righteous, the labor of love comes out to you. And the labor of love, God's continual mindset to you, is one of love and reconciliation and compassion. So my prayer is that you sense that in your heart today. I'd ask you to think about this question. Think about this and just kind of maybe write some feedback here. How do you sense God loving you? And you're like, I don't. Well, that's a really immediate, quick reply. But maybe you could take just a couple seconds, maybe 10, 15, 30 seconds, and just think about that. And ask Holy Spirit, show me where you're loving me. Because I think when we look and ask for awareness of God loving us, I think you're going to see and experience and recognize some really, really powerful revelations of God. So thank you again for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the little notification thing, right? Because that way you know when we have new episodes. And leave your feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. And we have our magnificent joke, which we all love. I say it with dripping sarcasm. So how does a rancher know which cows to buy? Which cows he's going to choose? How does a rancher know which cows? Because he uses a catalog. Catalog. I know, right? It's going to be way better next week. Not really, but I really thank you for watching. Catch you next week.